And welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is the one about Diana Ross. Thank you for listening. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
All right, thanks. So which book did you find us this week?
Well, it's Diana Ross's autobiography.
Yeah.
Little Secrets of a Sparrow.
Sparrow.
Not all the secrets, though, is it, Diana?
I don't think there's really any secrets in it.
No, she's kept secrets.
And the sparrow is because she is thin.
Tweety little voice.
Yeah.
I love Diana Ross.
You do?
I'm just laughing at her, but I absolutely love her.
I recognise her as one of the enduring icons of modern popular music.
She really is.
Yeah, she really is. I mean, she's lasted a long old time.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, I always kind of almost didn't rate her vocally because obviously we have Aretha Franklin and all of these amazing voices, and somehow she just has this soft poppy voice. And then she came on TV doing a live concert. God, she was amazing.
She's absolutely amazing. And the thing is, I know this, they deliberately picked her voice out of the Supremes because it was the smaller voice, because they wanted something less gospel. They were actually trying to make it less black, effectually.
Right.
And more crossover. So, that was a deliberate choice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the weaker voice, but it is a beautiful voice nonetheless. Yeah. But because it's not a big black soul voice, she gets treated like she's lesser, but she isn't.
No, she isn't.
It's completely stunning, her voice.
Yeah.
And face.
She's got the voice and the face.
She has, though. Because so many beautiful pictures in this book, actually.
Right.
Loads.
Right, okay. I don't think we've read an autobiography yet, which has so many photographs of the person in it. But each one is absolutely beautiful.
Gorgeous.
From, the day she was born.
Yeah.
Every single photo in this book is stunning.
She is part model, isn't she?
Yes.
And also because she's stick thin, clothes just hang on her amazingly. Plus she had the best designers. Oh,
she started off designing, didn't she?
Yes, she did. Anyway, we shouldn't...
Oh, yes, we haven't started
yet.
Okay, let's start at the beginning.
Diana Ross, born in 1944, which was quite a long time ago now.
Yeah, actually, I checked that she was still alive.
Yeah.
I
didn't.
Well, she's disappeared.
I saw her in concert about... within 3 years ago.
Really?
Yes, I did. She was absolutely fantastic. And some of her kids were on the front row, who are now grown-up people, who had their own kids there. And at some point she bent down and got them to sing along on the mic. And I mean, they've got beautiful voices as well. Anyway, so she's still around and still rocking it.
Still at it. So she's born in Detroit. She grows up around the projects and stuff, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So just in a small apartment with her mum and dad, who eventually end up having 6 children. Diana is the second oldest.
She said she only met her dad when she was 2 years old because he was in the army. And at that point, they were kind of estranged. Well, they were completely strangers. And she never really got to bond with him, because she says he was kind of cold. And then you can read it. I read it twice, actually, that whole bit, and I was trying to search between the words. There's obviously a lot of pain. And she actually says at one point, I don't really want to rehash all this and go back to that place of the misery. It's not helpful because as an older person, I realised that he was really shy and he just wasn't very communicative.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, it really hurt me because I just thought he didn't love me.
But mind you, saying that your dad is shy, your dad can be shy. He shouldn't really be shy with his children.
No.
Should he?
No.
I think, with a lot of things in this book, Diana is just very kind in the way she reflects and talks about people.
a lot?
Jesus Christ, when we get to
why don't you tell us the truth? Stop washing over it.
Yeah, I mean, later on in the book we'll get there, but with Florence Ballard and Berry Gordy, it's tell us the dirt, woman.
Know. It's kind of there between the words. You have to really dig and then really think about it. I've done so much thinking after reading this book and dwelling on it. Well, what was she actually trying to say?
I get it. I get that Diana Ross doesn't want to dwell on any negativity and in recounting her life story.
In her book.
Yeah.
You sit her down to a good dinner and a lot of wine and I'll bet she blabs it all out. Don't you reckon?
Yeah. But it starts with her dad. She's very reticent to say too many negative things about him, other than he was a bit cold and distant.
Yeah. She reached out and touched nobody's hand. She was reaching out all the time for him and he just wasn't there. So then you get a bit of a daddy complex, don't you? Then you try and replace your dad for the rest of your life, hence very gaudy.
Who we'll get to.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
But she does say that however cold and distant her dad was, her mum was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
They had a really good relationship, and her mum with her sisters. Yeah, it does sound like a very community-driven social upbringing, and everybody was out all the time playing and socialising and in each other's kitchens. It's not like her childhood lacked anything because she had a cold dad.
But again, it's hidden because she says at one point she's in the middle of the night, thinks she can hear crying. She finds her mum curled up behind a cupboard or something, absolutely sobbing and then terrified. Now she thinks, I'm not sure they were happy, but they were hiding it.
That bit I took from that is that her dad beat her mum up.
Or at least they'd had a horrible row, or her mum was scared of him in some way.
And then Diana says at the very end of the chapter, the last line is, I hope this memory is not true.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, well, you're right, your life story, I'd hope you would tell us the memories that are true.
Yeah.
If you didn't think it wasn't true, why is it in here?
Yeah, it is true.
Like we say, she doesn't like to divulge too much negativity, but the way she gets out of it is to say, my mum was so scared one night of my dad that I found her crying in the corner of a cupboard. Oh, but this memory might not be true. Yes, it's true.
And you're clearly trying to blank it, but you're writing a book and it's coming up and you're trying to squash it down again. That is what it feels like in this whole book, actually.
So her dad was an arsehole.
Possibly. Yeah.
But I think if her mum's crying, curled up in a cupboard, I think it's safe to say her dad's an arsehole.
Yeah, or maybe he was a bit messed up. He came out of the army. That's World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, she was born in 1944, so he was in World War II. He could have just been really messed up. Later on, she says her younger brother was absolutely ruined by the Vietnam War. He went off a lovely lad and he came home never the same again. And that's what war can do to you. I know that's famously the Vietnam War, but a lot of people came out pretty messed up after the Second World War. You don't know any more information. She doesn't know.
I just love at one point, so she's got like brothers and sisters, and her mum is ill, so the children have to go and live with the grandparents, and there's a letter that the mum writes to the grandparents, and it's in this book, and at the end it just says, I hope Diana is being a good girl. And it's like, wow, so she's actually singled her out among all of her children. So I hope she's being a good girl, which tells me that Diana Ross was actually the naughty one.
Was the feisty one, yeah. Well, she says that. She was always told not to fight until she got called racist names. Then she came home and told her mum that, and her mum went, you have to fight.
Yeah.
Even though I've told you not to, you have to give it all you've got if people are going to say those words to you. And that's when she did fight back. And that's when she became a feisty little fighter. And she said she never turned back from that. And she felt totally protective of all her brothers and sisters as well. And she became the force in her family, the protector.
It is interesting because when you think of her public persona, okay, we think of people like Grace Jones and Tina Turner who are really feisty people, like you wouldn't pick a fight with them. Diana Ross is so much more demure. She's so much more elegant and, for want of a better word, ladylike. But I don't imagine her to be this fighter, but she really is, isn't she?
She's the boss. That's why she's got a song called The Boss. But you must know some of those stories about her. I mean, it's nothing out of order. It's nothing a bloke wouldn't do of just being in charge and having to be kind of extra strong because you're a woman, so nobody thinks they can walk over you. Especially in those times, bloody hell.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I don't think I've really heard much like being a diva.
Yeah, which isn't fair to call her that in a way. It's just being
assertive.
Being assertive. Yeah, that's exactly right. And all the stories you hear about those times and how women are treated, never mind being a black woman and in the music industry, you'd have to be 10 times more assertive than a man just to survive. And she has certainly survived.
Little Sparrow.
No, she's absolutely brilliant, this woman. She says, right, that her family believe to this day that her cousin Virginia was murdered by the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
It was called a car accident, but her body was just lying beside the car. The car wasn't even touched.
There was no skid marks on the road.
No skid marks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say she was murdered.
I'd say she was murdered too.
And that's absolutely dreadful. I mean, that's an understatement. There's no words for that. That's how much racism was going on.
Yeah, it was very, very real for black people back in the 40s and 50s in a way that we can't really comprehend. like members of her immediate family were getting murdered because of the colour of her skin.
And she says one of the things she's proudest of her whole life is to help move that forward, to help people just see people as just people. And that is definitely something that the music can really break through, can't it? And they definitely did help that.
Yeah. So they do move around a bit from different neighbourhoods. In one of the neighbourhoods, she's neighbours with a man called William Robinson, better known as
Smokey.
Imagine having him as a neighbour.
How cool is that?
Yeah,
There's
so
some
cool.
amazing coincidences, isn't it?
Well, there is, and I was thinking about that, how they're also close together. But then, of course, Motown Records is from this city.
Yeah, Motor Town.
Yeah.
The Cars really, really came out of Detroit, and hence Motor Town, hence Motown. Yeah,
that's where Madonna's from, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so a lot of the singers and that were plucked from the surrounding areas. So she was friends with Smokey's niece, and they just used to sit and watch Smokey Robinson and the Miracles rehearse. And then one day, their song comes on the radio. And Diana is just amazed by this, and she runs home to tell her mum. She says, "Mum, Smokey's on the radio." That's when that little girl thought, if Smokey can do this, then so can I. I love that.
Yeah.
So somebody made it possible.
It could happen.
Yeah. It's like that nepotism thing, even though they're not related. If you just see somebody in your immediate surroundings achieving something, you know you can do it yourself.
Yeah. And she's highly musical, obviously, and it's the gospel church and all that again, isn't it?
Yeah. And her mum was a singer, right?
Yeah.
Not like a professional singer, but her mum would
sang all
sing.
the
There was
time.
music around the house.
Music. Yeah, she was 14 when she moved there and met Smokey. Then, when they moved to the Brewster Projects, she met Mary Wilson and Florence Ballard.
There they are.
She said Florence could have sung opera. That's the sort of voice she had.
Oh, I want to know more about that woman.
I know.
Trying to read between the lines of what Diana says about her.
I think
I'd love to know more.
Florence's house was very musical. I think they were all really musical. And Florence's older sister had a boyfriend called Milton Jenkins who was managing a group from Alabama called the Primes.
Yes.
So then they got together with them and rehearsed with them, and they became the Primettes.
The Primettes.
Sort of supportive. And they are now otherwise known as the Temptations.
Yeah. They're all there.
Isn't
all
it amazing?
At the same time.
But they weren't there, they were just in this neighbourhood. It's not like they were in a recording studio at that point. They're just in a neighbourhood.
Yeah. Amazing.
And then the other mad thing is they were driving down the road once, the three of them in the car, and they see this bloke who just looked really cool, and he had a guitar over his back. So they said, "Stop the car, because we need a guitarist." Because they'd been pestering Smokey Robinson to get them an audition with Berry Gordy. So they pulled over and said, "Oh, can you come and play with us?" He turns out to be an amazing guitarist. He's called Marvin Tarplin. Good name. And he's a lovely, lovely man. And so they're like, great. So they get the band together so they can audition. Smokey gets them the audition with Berry Gordy and then steals Marvin.
Yeah.
Steals him. And so he plays with the Miracles for the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
He was with them till the 70s. And I Googled him, by the way. And he co-wrote Tracks of My Tears.
Did he really?
How amazing is that?
Being plucked off the street by Diana Ross.
If they hadn't stopped the car and plucked him off the street, he wouldn't have co-wrote Tracks of My Tears.
Wow.
It's nuts, isn't it? Never mind, he co-wrote loads of their music, or wrote.
Diana Ross says it was a fair trade. They lost their guitarist, but they got an audition at Motown.
Yeah.
So they're called the Primettes at this point, and they're doing little gigs around neighbourhood parties and stuff.
Oh, there's 4 of them, by the way, but we don't need to mention that 4th one.
Betty.
She just buggered off to have kids.
Yeah. It's like Destiny's Child used to be 4.
What?
Then there were 3. And then there was Beyonce.
Then there was 1.
It's a similar trajectory.
We say then there was 1. The other 2 still do stuff.
Yeah, they do. Well, so did Mary and Florence for a bit, didn't they?
They
Anyway,
tried.
at this point, they're still at school. They're still like 14 years old. They're doing gigs as the Primettes. And then they were pestering Smokey Robinson, "Oh, get us this audition at Motown with Berry Gordy." So they went in and they used to rehearse in the building. And I think one day Berry Gordy walked past and just dropped in and liked what he heard. But he said to them, "Go and finish school and then come back and see me when you're done." So they were kind of disappointed, but at the same time, that's a massive seal of approval. And they are young.
It's the right thing to do, Berry.
It is the right thing to do.
Yes.
But then didn't he take on Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder when they were like 10?
Well, yeah, but that was child acts. They're true. Yeah, good point.
So they went back to school and they still gigged, right? They were doing the primates.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't just their age. Maybe their act just wasn't ready as well. Because singing's one thing, isn't it? But they definitely honed their act in those 2 years.
They did. And even though they didn't get the recording contract that day, that did not stop them after school every day running to Motown and just hanging out for the next 2 years.
They just got the bus every single day and went... Every day they were there and they got to know everybody and everyone got to know them. And then they got to sing backing on quite a lot of the other people's music, which actually really helped them learn as well.
So they became a fixture of Motown Records, even though they weren't a signed act at this point. And they actually recorded a couple of songs on a different label called Lupine Records. Now, she only very briefly sums this up in a sentence. I would have thought that would have been a massive deal for them when they were 15 to be recording. All right, they didn't get Motown, but they recorded a couple of other songs. That's all she says.
Maybe she can't remember, it's a long time ago.
Well, she doesn't do drugs, does she? So she should remember.
Doesn't do drugs. Do you not remember when she got busted at Heathrow Airport with weed? That was in our lifetime.
Yes, you're right. Then she doesn't say that.
It's not proper drugs, but she totally doesn't mention it at all.
Well, I quickly went onto Wikipedia and it said in 2002 she was arrested for driving under the influence, and apparently it was some substance that she was in being treated for a centre. So she really makes out in this book that she's cleaner than clean. She dabbles, doesn't she, at least?
She definitely does.
Definitely dabbles.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back in 1960, they're the Primettes. They're hanging out at Motown and they're doing backing vocals for other groups and stuff. And then a talent competition comes up and they enter it. And it's quite a big deal,
It's
right?
in Canada.
Yeah, she said they went across the river.
Yeah, see, it's not actually that far.
Detroit's at the top, right?
Yeah, because I might be wrong, but I think Niagara Falls, if you're looking at Niagara Falls, the land opposite it is Detroit. Yeah, it's weird because you don't realise.
Yeah.
I think Detroit's right at the top.
So they crossed the river to do a talent competition in Canada. And she says the audience had like thousands of people. Anyway, they went and they sang and they won.
Yeah, and it was their first taste of an audience ever.
And she says it wasn't just the fact that they won. She said something switched in her that day, that thousands of people were all cheering and clapping. I mean, she
loved it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, she loved it. And yet she turned into an anxious madwoman.
Oh, I hate that.
In the following audience situations.
Do you know what? And here she's already saying, so this is actually before they sign for Motown officially. She's already saying that Florence is not easy to deal with. So do you know any gossip about this? Because she doesn't really say anything. I mean, Florence is the one with the big voice, right?
Right. Okay, Dreamgirls, the musical.
Is it based on the Supremes?
It's totally based on Diana Ross's life story.
Is it?
Yeah, the truth. But it's mixed about a bit. So they didn't get sued. And Florence, if you believe that, which I do, because she kicked off when it came out.
Oh, did she really?
Which is a clue.
Yeah.
She just was really upset because she got sidelined and she was the one with the voice. And she is the one with the voice. So imagine being Aretha Franklin and being sidelined as a backing singer to someone with a weaker voice.
Yeah.
Very annoying. They're dynamic. It works vocally, but for egos, it was just a nightmare right from the beginning.
Oh, damn it.
And she was Berry Gordy's favourite.
Diana was.
Yeah. So he hired her as a secretary and she was doing nothing. But I'm pretty sure even as early as this, of being like 16, 17, he started having an affair with her, which she doesn't, well, she does mention.
Yeah, do you know what?
She doesn't say exactly when it started or anything like that. So that was really difficult for them as well, because he's
favouring
He's
Diana.
not only favouring her, he's actually sleeping with her and a little bit in love with her, and she's flirting all the time. Imagine how annoying it would be. And she's just getting elevated. And she said that all this jealousy came up because he was always going, do it like Diana does it. And this amazing, talented voice is getting sidelined to just like, come see about me,
Yeah.
It's just put in the background. Of course it's going to.
Because in the beginning, those first couple of songs, Florence did sing lead on a couple of them. And then quite soon, it kind of just naturally gravitated to Diana being at the front.
Yeah. I mean, she is the most beautiful. The other two are all right. They're quite nice. She's just stunning.
But like you say as well, what they wanted to do with the Supremes, they wanted
lighter voice, the crossover. Yeah. So it was a business choice. But that's not going to make you feel any better if you're this amazing woman with a great voice. So anyway, you can see it all starts. She goes from sort of saying there were jealousies to then ages later in the book saying those girls were really, really mean to me, or actually it was really painful and they were really out of order. Right later in the book, isn't it? And it was dreadful. And by the end, they weren't speaking to her at all. So
I imagine it is really, really hard to be effectively a glorified backing singer. You're not even a glorified backing singer. You are a backing singer. Yeah. And somebody who you consider to be a lesser talent is the one at the front getting all of the adulation.
A nightmare. I mean, to be fair, the three of them held themselves as a group. But you watch any footage, it's usually Diana in the front. And that was Berry Gordy saying, Diana, come up front. You know, so of course there were jealousies. Yeah, and more honest book would have been good for her to actually say things like, Berry pulled me out the front, to give us more details.
Yeah. Berry Gordy's written a book, right?
Yes, and we need to read it. And eventually, if we could piece together the whole thing.
The real history of Diana Ross. Oh, she actually even says in this that Mary Wilson wrote a book and she was really hurt by it.
Yes.
So we need to find that.
Yes, she's like, I will forgive her for writing that book. You're like, whoa, that's going to be worth reading.
So, in 1961, when Diana is 16 years old, they officially sign at Motown. With Berry Gordy and Motown. Amazing, huh?
Yes.
But even so even though they've been hanging out for a couple of years, constantly singing in competitions and stuff, they sign with Motown Records. They do not get going straight away.
It takes them 2 years, actually. It's that training years where they're recording songs, they're honing their act, and he puts them through a sort of finishing school where they have deportment, getting out of a car without flashing. A lot of people could do with those lessons. Oh, no, hang on. They probably had them. They're doing it on purpose, aren't they, the flashing?
I don't think reality TV stars have that kind of training. They're the ones that flash, right?
They're flashing on purpose. Anyone can put underpants on.
Yeah.
It's only just occurred to me right now they're doing it on purpose. Anyway, they had lessons in not flashing, even what knives and forks to wear in society. They just had finishing
What, even knives
skills.
And forks to wear?
To wear? To use. She says, Berry Gordy did not create us, he just developed us. We already had the qualities. We were already ladies. We were well brought up girls. Very important, that.
Yeah.
And also they made their own clothes. Well, Diana Ross made the clothes because she was so into fashion. She sewed everything for them, or she got other clothes and customised them. And another thing not mentioned in here that I know about them is their wigs, right? I think they did a gig, again, I might have been with Gladys Knight and the Pips, and they were on first, and they got the exact same wigs. Or it might have been the Shirelles. And they're like, no, we can't possibly go on with the same wigs after them. So they turned theirs around. They literally turned them backwards, which then completely changed 60s hair fashion.
Wow.
Yeah, because
they look
it
like
was
the Beatles.
It was like more of a heavy fringe look and everything. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
that was just a spur of the moment thing.
Yeah.
That's how the best things happen.
Fashion.
Wow.
Yeah, but why wouldn't she write about that? It's epic.
So they're with Motown for like over 2 years before they get the first proper hit. But Martha and the Vandellas and the Marvelettes are signed after the Supremes and get hit records first. Now, that means that Berry Gordy, he just had a thing for Diana, because I think any other band might have been dropped if they'd been there for 2.5 years and the other bands were getting hits first, don't you think?
Yeah, but you know when the magic happened is when he got them paired with Holland Dozier and Holland.
Ah, amazing.
And that's one of those things where already the three voices really gelled when they got the right songwriters for them, because she says everybody in Motown had their own sound and their own songs that went with each band. Each person was completely different, although they all came under this umbrella of Motown, and they just hadn't found their thing. And those three amazing people come along and just wrote the right hits for them, like Baby Love, really simple, beautiful love songs that were just right for those three innocent-seeming girls.
And I love just that sound of those songs. You know, things were still so basic. Recording techniques were so basic. And that beach, they would go out into the hallway and record because they had a wooden staircase.
Yeah.
And they would stamp on the staircase and that would become the beat of the song. And then when you know that and you hear it, it's like, oh my God, you can hear them stamping up a staircase. I love all that.
Yeah, me too.
You can't even replicate it now.
No, there's sometimes in the toilets because the acoustics are good.
Yeah. I know we've had recorded sound for quite a while at this point, but they're still finding out stuff. They're still refining. So having to be more creative, really. Everything's done with a computer program these days. You have 2,000 drum beats at your disposal. And they're going out with a microphone and finding things that make the noise. I love all that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've actually been to Motown. Do you know that?
No.
Yes.
When?
I had a stopover in Detroit 3 hours, so I jumped in a cab and got to Motown. That's another story because it was pretty stressful. Anyway, no one was there. Some people were in the room and then left, and I was in the room alone. That room where they recorded everything.
No kidding.
I shed a tear.
Wow.
But you know what it is? It was a big house. It was just a residential house down the street. And then he ended up buying the house next door and putting them together, and that became Hitsville. He just had one room's his office, one room's the big basement's the recording. It's just their houses on a residential street.
It is amazing to think that was it. And that's the way they were recording stuff effectively in the basement of a house. And then within 4 or 5 years, it became one of the biggest record labels in the country, in the world.
Because she says Berry Gordy, he was writing songs for Jackie Wilson, and then he met Smokey Robinson and decided that he was so talented that he wanted to manage him. He borrowed $800 off family and friends and set up this place. And within 5 years, it was the biggest recording studio and the most famous place in America. In 5 years. He wasn't even a businessman at that point. He was just writing music. No wonder he was so neurotic, which he clearly was.
Yes. So they're on Motown, and there are other bands that are way more successful than they are. But the Supremes get the gig to go on the Dick Clark's Caravan of Stars tour, which is a tour around the country, right, with various different bands on the bill. Gene Pitney is headlining, the Shirelles, Brenda Holloway, and the poster says all those names and others. And the Supremes are part of others. Is it the secretary or somebody sits the Supremes down and says to them, you're very, very lucky to be going on this tour? Yeah. They're really right at the bottom of the pecking order, aren't they? Mm. It's astonishing to think that now.
I know.
Even when they had their Motown recording contract, they were still pretty much nobody.
And all of those bands are on one bus. All of those people are all modelled in together. It's so cool. But Where Did Our Love Go had hit the charts. It's 1964, so they're 20 now. It did take them that long. And as they're on that tour, their song is sneaking up the charts. And it ends up top of the charts, and they end up top of the bill.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
Yeah, they're headlining over Gene Pitney by the end of that tour.
So over that course of the whole summer, they went from the others on the poster to the headliners.
Yeah.
And she said that because they're on tour and they're working them so hard, it's not like now where you've got a cell phone and you keep up with it. They're kind of unaware of how their song is growing. All they know is the feedback from the audience. As they're going to more shows, the audience are kind of getting more excited to see them. And they're like,
know their song.
Yeah, and they start singing the song along. And that's how they find out the song is becoming popular, just from the audience reactions every night until it builds and builds. And they're the headliners.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's amazing. So it's Where Did Our Love Go? And then Come See About Me and Baby Love, all 3 massive hits.
All number ones on the Billboard chart.
In that one summer.
Classic tunes though, hey?
Oh, amazing to this day.
Yeah.
Timeless classics.
That tour though, that's the one that you were telling me about. I remember this a couple of years ago because they would go to towns in the South. They'd go to restaurants and stuff and would be refused entry. They'd have to use the blacks only bathroom and stuff. But she said in Georgia was where they got shot at.
I know.
Blimey.
Yeah, actually smashed up the bus. I mean, they all piled in, climbing over each other and got out of town being shot at.
Wow.
It's actually insane.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Again, she was like, if you were in the gig, you would have no idea because it was black people and white people all dancing together. And that was the beauty of the music. It would bring everyone together. Then they went outside. And it was so obviously segregated in some areas.
You say this, you see, but I also remember reading in the biography I read about some of those theatres having a rope down the middle.
Did they?
And blacks whites on different
sides.
But then I think their tour actually is the one that took that rope away for the first time, but she doesn't mention it, so I can't be sure, but that's what I thought I knew. They had 5 more hits after that, which was including Stop in the Name of Love and I Hear a Symphony. They're just so great, the songs.
Oh, they really, I've been listening to them this week. So they're now massively famous. These Supremes, who are all getting on so well.
Yeah, by the way, they switched names when they started recording.
Oh, damn it, did we not say that?
No, but it's pretty obvious that they did. And anyway, she's friends with people like Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder's like a brother to her. And Suzanne de Pass works at Motown and is her best friend for her whole life. And she's the one who discovered the Jacksons, actually, and used to clothe them as well, which is cool.
So they're being worked by Berry Gordy, right? And actually, Diana says that Berry Gordy was like a surrogate father. I didn't realise that he was 15 years older than Diana.
And he was married with kids.
Okay.
When they moved to LA, she said he had been married with kids, but he was currently married with kids when they first started having an affair. I'm pretty damn sure about that.
Right.
Yes.
But she said that Mary Wilson, because obviously within the Supremes, Mary and Florence were kind of jealous of the attention Berry gave to Diana. And Mary Wilson warned Diana, he's a womanizer. Don't get involved with him. But I think that Diana kind of thought it was Mary was saying it out of jealousy.
But he had a lot of other women, not even just his wife.
So she says he was like a surrogate father, but she says at other times he was a controller and a slave driver. So they were being worked relentlessly. And she said the stress was so bad that she basically couldn't eat. When she came to sit down to eat, her jaw would clamp shut, and she actually said that even the smell of food could give her nausea. And actually, when you see those old black and white footage, she was stick thin.
You can see her bones.
So she basically had anorexia, didn't she?
She did. She has major anxiety, and she said that Berry Gordy would sit and take notes every single show and then come backstage and they really wasn't supportive, just going, you didn't do that, you sang that, you got that wrong. It was always negative. So it just crushed them. Also, they're doing 5 or 6 shows a day when they're on the Chitlin circuit. Absolutely exhausting. They're not sleeping properly. They're sleeping on a bus in seats with all those other people. She had a boyfriend who had a wife and kids and other girlfriends. It's going to drive you mad.
One thing that really stood out to me in this book is when I remember all those old TV appearances of the Supremes, I always thought Diana Ross had a really weird posture where she's kind of stooped over into the microphone. And in this book, she says she was so stressed that her shoulders were so high she would carry them above her neck.
Wow.
So actually all that footage of her singing like that into the microphone is because she's stressed out.
She's literally a ball of tension.
Yeah. Oh, that really changed it. I just thought she had a weird posture.
Wow.
But she was, her head was done in.
Losing it.
Poor woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course there's tensions within the band as well.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not just coming from Berry Gordy, who's really controlling them and not giving them an inch. Actually, within the band, they're all falling out. God, what a nightmare.
I know, actually a nightmare. It's the best time of her life and also a nightmare at the same time.
And also as well, all right, there's tensions in the band, but this is Diana's book. But let's not forget, those same tensions and pressures are also on Mary. They're also on Florence. It's like the 3 of them are just having not a great time.
No, it's rubbish.
And they're all falling out with each other as well.
So Florence starts drinking. Well, someone had to. I mean, it's bound to happen. And she left the group. And she'd already put on loads of weight. She wasn't turning up. She's just so unhappy.
So there's a bit in here where they're doing a gig in Las Vegas and Diana Ross is talking about how Florence is drinking now and how things really came to a head in Las Vegas and we were on stage and I was waiting for Diana to tell this awful thing that Florence had done on stage. And she said, and our costume was tuxedos and Florence's belly was just sticking out of her tuxedo. I was so embarrassed to be on stage with her. It's just like, is that it?
That's your worst crime.
That's it. I thought she was going to say she threw up on the piano player or something.
You're right.
It's just that her belly was poking out of her tuxedo.
Anyway, she left the group 1967 and I don't know when she died, but she died like homeless, drunk, or living in a car or something dreadful like that. She does mention it, but...
Diana does talk in this book about going to Florence's funeral. She said that her family kind of begrudged her being there.
Oh, it was all a nightmare. And then I think the press broke into the church and it was an open coffin and she was trying to take charge and everyone resented her because there's other stuff, like I think she was very ill and she needed money to help her and Diana didn't give any, but she says in this book, I didn't even know she was ill. So it's all of this. There's a lot more to this story here than she's telling us. And also I feel like I read once that Florence and Mary weren't allowed to perform under the name of the Supremes. I feel like I read that.
Okay, without
which
Diana.
Means that they couldn't really go off and do their own thing because they were made anonymous by being barred from using the name the Supremes.
Right.
So how could they earn money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably Berry Gordy, though, wasn't
Probably,
it? That wasn't Diana.
She probably could have influenced that. But by that point, they hated each other anyway.
Yeah.
So at that point, she goes off and becomes a megastar. And for the last few years anyway, it was already Diana Ross and the Supremes.
Yeah, because they drafted in Cindy Birdsong, right, to take over from Florence.
From Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells.
Yeah. And she even said that things had broken down so badly between them that when the song Someday We'll Be Together, which is Diana Ross and the Supremes, she actually said it's not the Supremes at all singing on
it's
it.
just some random backing people.
Yeah. This is when the Supremes weren't talking to her.
No, also Berry Gordy moved to LA and she followed him and left Cindy and Mary behind. Oh, all right, Florence has already gone, but that's how much they weren't even in the same side of the world at that point.
Now, it was a surprise to me to think that Berry Gordy uprooted Motown and moved it to LA.
Yeah, well,
why would he do that?
There's just more happening in LA because Detroit is not New York or LA, is it? So
no, but Detroit is Motown. Motown is Detroit. You would think it's famous enough that people would travel there to be a part of it.
You wouldn't have to move. Prince didn't leave Minneapolis.
Exactly. I would have thought that Motown was a big enough thing on its own to have not gone to LA.
Maybe he fancied a bit of sunshine. Why not?
But I think that's telling in itself because she's so cagey about her relationship with Berry Gordy.
I know.
And then she says she moved there with him, but the other Supremes didn't.
Yes. That's the only thing, right? When she moved to LA, she says, we never talked about marriage. I wasn't ready for that. That's the only point where she really admits that they were properly together.
But she also says, he never called me his girlfriend.
Yeah, and she lived 3 doors down the road.
So they have had a long-term relationship.
Absolutely.
So why don't just say it?
We never talked about marriage. We don't say that about somebody you're not... I know, so that's her saying it without saying it.
Do you know what? I wonder if it's because she never really knew because he had so many different women and he might have just kept her hanging the whole time.
But also, all these people are still alive and they're still friends. She obviously feels she can't say. So someone else has put it in a musical.
Right. So let's just join the dots.
Yeah.
Berry Gordy and Diana Ross had a long-term relationship.
Yes. They definitely did.
Yeah.
Oh, did we even say that Smokey Robinson and her had a year-long relationship?
No.
Right, I've always known that, but when I Googled it, it turns out that Smokey Robinson's only just released his autobiography and he talked about it in that, which made the news because no one's ever said it before. So it was when they were quite young, early days of Motown, and he was married. They had a year-long affair and Diana ended it because she felt guilty because she was friends with Smokey's wife. And Smokey still loved his wife. And he says, I absolutely believe that you can love 2 people because I absolutely love Diana and I absolutely love my wife. But they parted and he stayed with his wife. They're still really, really close, him and Diana. So, here goes. Another thing she didn't mention.
Yeah. She doesn't even really mention the Jackson 5.
No, she doesn't.
She just said when they go to LA, she just says, oh, that's when I met Michael Jackson. The Jacksons came to live with me.
Yeah, and is that true or not? I can't remember if that's true or not.
Oh, no, I think they did. Because from reading Jermaine Jackson's autobiography, I know that the Jackson 5's first album was called Diana Ross Presents the Jackson 5. Even though she didn't really. It's just that she was massively famous at that point and it was a Motown connection. Yeah, they moved in with her, I guess, when they were being groomed for start.
No, but it is. It's trained up, developed.
And she mentions that in a sentence.
Yeah.
And then she does talk about Michael Jackson a bit later on when they're doing the Wiz and stuff. Yeah. But it's just like, why is she not even mentioning that?
I know.
Is it because she literally had nothing to do with it?
I just think she doesn't want to dish anything because most people are still alive. Okay, so she meets this bloke when she's shopping.
Yes.
On Santa Monica Boulevard, and He's called Bob Ellis Silberstein. She basically chats him up in a shop, and then he gets her number and they go on some dates, they fall in love. What she doesn't say, I don't know if you know this, but she was pregnant by Berry Gordy at that point.
What?
Yes.
She does
This is
not
well
say
known.
that.
This is a well-known fact. She does not say that in this book.
No, she doesn't.
He is cool with it. She tells him, they go on some dates and fall in love, and he's absolutely besotted with her, and she says, I'm pregnant, but he's not with me. He doesn't want to be with me. He's got all these other girlfriends, wives, kids, and I haven't even told him I'm pregnant. He says, I'll marry you and raise that child as my own, and we'll have more children. That's what happened, right? And from the point when she married him, she actually says it was a really difficult thing between Berry Gordy and him, because Berry Gordy really didn't want his stars to marry, because he felt like it would be a threat to his power, which it was, because Bob wanted to manage Diana and was encouraging her to leave Motown and go solo. So from that point on, I happen to know this, that she never saw Berry except at work. He never came to their house. He disapproved of her marrying. When she had a child and had a nanny, he never met that child till the child was about 13, 14 or something like that. By that point, there were 2 other kids, possibly more because she met another bloke. But these blokes, that husband and her next husband, were white. So the first child is very dark. And the next 2 are much lighter. And it's blatantly obvious. And her first child, I think, is called Rhonda. So she looks quite a lot like Berry Gordy.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's so obvious that that child is different from the other 2. I think it's the Motown 25 special because there's so many witnesses to this. It's the first time Berry Gordy's ever met them, and there's some weird thing where everybody kind of knows in the room, and Berry Gordy walks in and is like, oh right, this is Rhonda and this is my 3 children, and he kind of, everyone saw the penny drop. And from that moment on, he was just completely part of their lives.
Right.
And just completely stepped in and became a father to this girl. And now they've got a proper father-daughter relationship, and it all came out. But she doesn't mention a word of it.
Diana.
How can you write an autobiography and not mention that? That's absolutely humongous.
Yeah.
And the thing is it's known anyway, so you might as well talk about it.
There does come a point, a definite point, and it is when she breaks from Berry Gordy, where she does start taking control, business decisions, and she even her finances and stuff. She says most other stars let somebody else take care of it. It's almost like she becomes a control freak.
This is when she split up with Bob. She'd moved to New York in 1977 to make The Wiz. She was newly single. She moved to New York, took the family, and she said she felt like Dorothy. She totally related to her because she was starting afresh in a totally new world.
She starts going out on the town and she goes to Studio 54, right? Now, this is where we're talking about her doing drugs, not doing drugs. She actually says, I'm really aware that everybody was on drugs at Studio 54. I just used to go home and read self-help books.
Yeah, right. Yeah. She was really good friends with Steve Rubell, who ran Studio 54. Right. Now, if you're on the inner circle, you're not doing drugs. No way, and dancing the night away. Of course, we could be libelously saying, in our
she's
opinion,
been done for it.
Yeah.
No, like when I read this book,
yeah,
I totally believed that she has not touched drugs in her life. And then you just told me she did, and then I went on Wikipedia and says that she was done for driving under the influence of drugs.
Of drugs, right. Yeah, she was hitting Studio 54 and dancing on. Also, she's like, I moved with all my kids and we really got time to bond because I had so much less staff because our house was smaller. So I actually spent time with my own kids, and that's when we really bonded. It was so wonderful to be at home with them. Sometimes I went out to Studio 54 or parties with Liza Minnelli and Holston and Iman and Warhol. She's in all those pictures. In that whole scene, she was out all the time, and when she was there for her kids, she was probably hungover or coming down.
So The Wiz, then you love The Wiz, right?
Yeah, I love it. I get her criticisms completely though, because it flopped at the box office. She had an amazing time. She says that she thinks it was too dark. She thinks it was too frightening, and that Dorothy was frightened all the way through it, really scared. And she's right, it's too scary.
But The Wizard of Oz is scary.
Yeah, but Dorothy...
That witch is terrifying.
Yeah, but Dorothy isn't always scared in The Wizard of Oz, is she? Whereas Diana Ross was pretty freaked out all the way through it. She didn't have a sort of courageous...
Why, is that in the script or is that the way she played it?
Well, I reckon that was how she was directed.
Okay.
And she also says she thinks it was filmed like a play instead of being filmed like a film. And I get that too.
Oh, because The Wiz was actually a musical on Broadway, right?
Yeah, first, yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's right. It's still absolutely amazing, but you can tell it's flawed. I've just never really put my finger on why.
And she almost burnt her retinas out during filming.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's still got a black spot now.
Yeah.
Actually, we haven't said that she was in Lady Sings the Blues way before The Wiz.
Oh, that's right. When she left the Supremes in 1970, it was to do Lady Sings the Blues. And she got completely immersed. Actually, she was pregnant. So she had 9 months, she had to wait to film it, and in that 9 months she immersed herself in the part of Billie Holiday's life and mind, which was pretty dark.
Mm-hmm. And Diana Ross got an Oscar nomination for that.
Yeah.
Do you know, I've never seen it.
I have seen it, and it is absolutely brilliant.
Really?
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant.
Because I know she came in for a lot of criticism when she was cast as Billie Holiday. People were like, are you kidding? Diana Ross can't do this.
She doesn't look like her, she doesn't sing like her. And then she said... The turning point was when she realised, I'm not even going to try and sing like her. And because then she wasn't trying, she actually does sound like her. Because she really got inside her what made her tick. And then that came out of her voice. I think it's a great film anyway. Yeah, whereas then she made Mahogany in 1975, which wasn't so good. It's about a fashion designer. It had Anthony Perkins in it. I watched the trailer. Did look pretty dodgy.
Did it?
But then
got
she
some
says,
good tunes out of it.
Yeah, I know. Theme from Mahogany.
Yeah, funny that comes from Mahogany.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know what a theme from Mahogany was. I didn't know what it meant. Never questioned it. Did you? Did you know?
Of course.
I never knew.
It's a theme from Mahogany.
Yeah, I just thought it was the in brackets title.
It's stiff,
It
didn't
looks
it, the
dodgy.
film?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she said Berry Gordy took over direction halfway through, and then there was loads of tension, and he probably ruined it. Anyway, in 1980, Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards came along. I happen to know this through Nile Rodgers. He talks about it a lot. She was down and out in 1980. She didn't have a record deal or anything, and they couldn't believe that they got to work with her, and they sat down with her and they said, just talk to us, tell us what's happening in your life. She told them all about it. She said, the love of her life, Berry Gordy, he's not mine, he belongs to everyone else, hence Upside Down. You know, I know you've looked at all those words, it's all about Berry Gordy.
Berry Gordy, wow.
And then there's I'm Coming Out, because Nile Rodgers was at Studio 54, surrounded by Diana Ross drag queens. When he went to the toilet, he looked this way, that way, he went, oh my God, she's a gay icon. I've got to write her a gay icon song. And wrote I'm Coming Out for her.
Wow.
I know, it's amazing. So it was just a real disco album as well. An old piano, because she has an old piano in her room.
I love that song.
They wrote that album. There's a load of other stuff that she didn't mention, which is that she freaked out, thought they were trying to ruin her, and wouldn't record it.
Why?
Wouldn't put it out, because someone told her it's disco and it's not who she is.
Oh, okay.
So it took a year for them to talk her around.
Wow.
And he was absolutely gutted because he thought it was some of his best work. And then eventually it came out and it totally and utterly resurrected her career, which she does not mention. And then she had loads of more hits, like It's My Turn, Touch Me in the Morning, Do You Know Where You're Going To? All these lovely ballads, still classics. And it's around this time she took control of her career and became business-minded and realised she could control what she wears. Guess who she was going out with then that she doesn't mention at all?
Bob Mackie.
Who totally is the one that pushed her towards taking control of her business side.
Don't tell me. Let me guess, Donald Trump.
No.
Is it a business person?
No.
Oh.
Well, it is, but I'm going to just
Or like a music person?
Yeah, music.
David Geffen.
No, I'm just going to tell you. It's so unpredictable.
No, I want to guess. It's unpredictable.
Yeah.
A music business person who is unpredictably going out with Diana Ross. Oh, Julio Iglesias.
No.
I don't know.
Gene Simmons.
From Kiss?
Yes.
What?
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And I double checked this fact because I thought, I'm sure she was, because I was looking for it going, but when she took on business, I know that it was him. Why is she flicking over the pages? Hey? I double checked it, and Gene Simmons from Kiss was going out with Cher, and they were all really good mates. She was mates with Cher. And when they split up, she just stepped right in there and carried it on.
Really?
Cher was a bit pissed off because they'd only just split up and she was a bit upset.
Really?
In fact, possibly overlapped.
No
Yeah,
way.
yeah. She stole him a little bit off Cher.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
From
Gene
Kiss.
Simmons.
I would never have
was
put them together.
Really, really a business-minded bloke. He's really got his act together. So he completely nurtured her through taking control. But I guess in her narrative, she wants it to be her taking control of herself. She doesn't want a man to have done it. But it was a man who pushed her towards.
But that must have been such a revelation to her after being controlled by Berry Gordy for the last 20 years.
Somebody who wanted her to take control of herself.
Yeah.
I know, it's brilliant.
And she really did. And this is the point. Do you remember when we read Mariah Carey? And Mariah Carey had this massive entourage. And then she went to do a gig or something one day, and Diana Ross was there. And Diana Ross was there on her own. Mariah Carey said, "Where's your entourage? Where's all your people?" And Diana Ross said, "It's me. I do everything." She said to Mariah Carey, "One day you will have this same revelation. Actually, you can do it yourself."
That's right.
Yeah. That's actually the real deal. Diana Ross is the boss, and she is in control.
Yeah, and she had to learn it the hard way through all of these different experiences, which is why she is amazing, and I totally and utterly respect her.
When I was reading this book, it did read like there's so many nuggets of positive thinking, self-help, and like every line is almost a quote from a...
I got a bit annoyed by all that stuff. Yeah. There's chapters and chapters of it.
Oh, there's even a list. These are the mantras, I live my life. And it's like, make each day your masterpiece. It's like, I just want to read a rock and roll biography. Do you think she's got a live, laugh, love poster in her kitchen?
It's lovely you're padding out this book with all these thoughts. But you're saying this is an autobiography and this isn't your life. These are just your thoughts. And
do you know what? There's part of me that admires it in the way that she has had negative things happen to her and they do not define her. Well, at least she doesn't make us think they define her in this book. There's just one thing that you see and like, I'm slagging it off. And then every so often I read a line in the book and I think, oh, that's really enlightening. Because she doesn't say really anything that bad about anyone. She never really dwells on the dark stuff, but she says complaining does nothing to support future movement. And I know that's a terrible line out of a self-help book, but there's a real truth in that. And I'm kind of thinking, you know how much I love Dolly Parton's book? And it really boils me out thinking, oh, wow, I should look at the world through the lens of Dolly Parton. There are bits in Diana Ross where I kind of think, really, I should be more like Diana Ross, actually.
That's just the book she's written, though. What's her actual character like?
Yeah.
I do like that she says kids really remind her that she's just an ordinary person. Because she is probably just an ordinary person who happens to have a voice of an angel and the face of one. What?
No, it's right. Her kids in this book, she got them all to write a letter, right? So there's handwritten letters in this book from her children. Now, are they letters that they just happened to write her and she discovered in a drawer and printed in the book? Or are they letters that she said to her kids, oh, I'm writing my autobiography, write me a really nice letter about what a good mum I am?
Oh, yeah.
That's what happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, she had two more kids, two boys, with this bloke, Arne Nace, who she met in 1984. He was a businessman. And they met in Nassau. And she had no idea that he was stinking rich. They're obviously on this beautiful, amazing, wealthy person's hotel in Nassau, which, like you or I, probably wouldn't be staying in. And he's got his own kids. He's got 3 kids. And he's obviously really nice. And he's very, very wealthy. At the age of 43, she had another kid. At 44, another kid. So it's quite late. And they married pretty fast. And at the time of writing, they had been married for 7 years. And they're really happy. And she's completely in love with him. And it's all good. But, you know, he'd moved to London just after they got married. And she said, he never expected me to follow. So I stayed here and we have a bit of an international relationship. And I'm raising the kids. He's already got 3. And we try and see each other when we can.
Yeah.
You know, this is a bit odd.
You know what? When you're both multi-millionaires and you do have access to go where you want, when you want, perhaps it's not so important that you do live in the same house.
Or country. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, then she's probably flying off here and there and the nannies are probably raising the kids, aren't they? Anyway, she's I'm so happy, I'm so happy. Are you? You know, are you really? It's one of those, you're not sure how much, you're not sure what you're being told.
She wants us to believe that she's happy.
She does. But I'd take this with a pinch of salt. You have to add salt to get the flavour out of it.
Yeah, it's a story of Diana Ross, but it's surprisingly insipid.
It's just the icing and it's not the cake.
Yeah.
It's the surface, isn't it?
She didn't even mention Chain Reaction.
She didn't! She didn't mention the Bee Gees!
Oh my God.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Thrift Shop Biography. We love making this podcast and we're absolutely thrilled that so many of you are already listening. We're new to this and you could really help us out by leaving us a review somewhere, wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you could share us, tell your friends about us or drop some links on social media. We have a Facebook page called Thrift Shop Biography, so make sure you come over there to hear about the episodes first and what else we're up to. Okay, see you next week. And if you're new here, there are loads more episodes now to go and listen in the back catalogue, so make sure you go and enjoy them. Okay, thank you very much.